This is a meeting of the European network. And I think the main thing that we need to discuss is, should there be a European network? Because there isn't really one. So I'm nominally down as chair because I was volunteered, but that's probably something that it's worth us discussing at some point. However, to start off, I'm conscious that I do not know who everyone in the room is. I'm assuming that there are other people in a similar situation. So I wondered if it was worth, for those of us around the table, if it's worth just introducing each other and where we're from and which authority. So I'll start to my left, Darren. Shall we?
Darren Henry is Scottish Information Commissioner.
From the Portuguese Commission on Access to Administrative Documents.
Okay. From the Commission and President of this Commission.
Leonardo Sevilla, the Marco Commissioner for Information and Privacy in Kosovo.
Secretary of Albanian Commission of Data Protection.
Julia Siklay from the Hungarian Data Protection and Freedom of Information Authority.
Plamenka Vujčeva from North Macedonia, Agency for the Protection of the Right to Free Access to Public Information.
We're just doing introductions.
Martina Schulz from the German Federal Commission of the Data Protection and Freedom of Information.
Introduce us. You're still.
They're guests.
You sat around the table, so.
Honorable guest.
Honorable, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Excellent. Well, it's great to have everyone here. I've already been told off because we need to speak into the microphones if we're going to speak. So there is one at each side of a table. So if somebody wants to chip in with any thoughts at some point, if you could use the microphone, that would be great. Thank you very much. So, I mean, we have an hour for this. I don't think we necessarily need an hour. But I just wondered, kind of for people around the room, does anyone have any strong feelings around should there be a kind of a European network that we have at the ICIC level? Does anyone have any thoughts about whether or not do we have a volunteer for somebody who does want to be the chair of the group going forward? And also, are there particular issues that we think it would be helpful to discuss at this level? In particular, bearing in mind that obviously there are the working groups, but that doesn't mean there aren't issues that the working groups are discussing that we couldn't also discuss in this fora as well. I pose those questions without necessarily having any answers, but I kind of open it up for discussion in the first instance if anyone does have any thoughts.
Well, we, former Yugoslav Republic, we have initiative 2020. Kosovo is a member too. We are meeting once a year each year in another country, and the practice is not to meet on the capital city, on the premises of offices of the institution, but outside of the city. So we are meeting this year in Croatia, in Dubrovnik. Last year it was in North Macedonia, in Struga. So we are doing good job because we share practical experience. Last year it was Tromsø Convention, the theme of the topic of the meeting, and we initiate ratification of the convention. So I understood that the Slovenian ratified the Tromsø Convention, and Albania, I think. So such meetings are great experience for us. And we were to Berlin this year. It was Martina organized it, so she will speak. It was a great experience. But what we need is more practical experiences, exchange of experience more than just theory, if you understand me. So, thank you.
Martin, did you want to go, Martin?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate your approach and your idea. And as Lamenka already mentioned, Julia started the, here again, Julia, the godmother of European case handling freedom of information workshops. She initiated the first one in 2018, and then in 2019, the colleagues from Gibraltar jumped in, and then, as we all know, there was lockdown due to the pandemic, and the whole thing fell asleep. And we started our work as a single freedom of information department at the German Federal Commissioner's Office last year. And we are really seeking for a network like this, and I think it should or could be both. So we did host this case handling workshop, and in order to prevent it to fall asleep again, we said we will be the secretariat for this format. And if somebody is volunteering to host it, we will be happy to hand it over. And if not, we will always host it once a year. That is our offer. So whoever is willing to have it will get it. But this is a format for working level, people to exchange on the actual work, on the legal framework, and to build a network on working level. But I was trying to contact my boss this morning after our conversation. So he's in Japan at the G7 meeting, and you know it's a contract on the expenses of a third party is always very difficult.
Yeah.
But I was suggesting him why not offering next fall around the Right to Access to Information Day in September. Offering an opportunity for the commissioners in Europe, not only European Union, but Europe-wide, to get together. Because I know that he's very interested in getting connected with the Freedom of Information commissioners. And yeah, that's our idea, but I can't make a concrete offer, unfortunately, because I didn't get a hold of him so far. But these are our experiences.
So that's excellent to hear. Thank you very much. I guess before we come back to that, and it sounds like it's something we might have to come back to once you've had the opportunity to have the conversation. But is there anyone else that wants to chip in at this point?
Thank you very much. It was really just to move a bit forward on that idea of the commissioners being able to get together. I think as a baseline, it's very useful indeed for the working level members of the offices to get together, because then we really are sharing practical ideas, implementation in the real world at a level which I think is very useful for all our offices. But I think sort of once level up from that at the more strategic level, I think there is a benefit of exchanging ideas, changes in law that are being intended within our jurisdictions, ideas as to who's moving forward, good ideas which could be used across the board. Because one looks at the other regional groups, one looks at South America, one looks at the emerging group in Africa, where there's lots of cross-pollination of ideas, there's lots of good discussion between the groups, and when they come here they've already had a lot of these discussions. Things have been fleshed out in a way that in Europe I feel we're much more, each of us is quite isolated in terms of what we have to say, and we're looking at it very much purely through the national lens. I think it would be useful to add a regional lens to that as well.
Yeah, thank you. And maybe related to this, it should be a very good idea if we will do kind of network, even online meetings, to realize, or at least to have kind of a network or kind of application that it will be used by everyone. And if we have any ideas you mentioned, or any change of legislation, or if we are facing with the challenges on the cases, to just get the advices from each other. So I think that can be realized in very easy ways, since the application can be used very, very easy. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else?
Yes.
Yep. Go.
As you have said, one thing is having a meeting informal, and the other level is to establish a network. the ICIC, where we are now. In the beginning, only annual meetings. And for instance, the Portuguese Commission was present in several of those meetings. But interestingly, when ICIC was established as a network, Portuguese was not there. And only 2 years ago, the Portuguese Commission integrated this network where we are now. And as you've said, in Europe, we are working, each of us working for itself. For instance, in our peninsula, Portugal doesn't have even an annual meeting with the Spanish counterpart, nor with the French counterpart. Interestingly, the Portuguese name is Cada, likewise the French name, Cada, is the same name. No, with the Italian counterpart. The ex-Yugoslavian countries have already these meetings, and they say they are being very useful. So, yesterday, no, the day before, when I met our German colleagues, I asked them, is there a European network? And they answered me, there was, I don't know. Yes, nowadays I don't know. Okay. So the idea is very good. But who will support that idea? Germany, United Kingdom, Scotland, North Macedonia. Who will be the secretariat? That's important. Since we want to create a network, there will need to be a siège, a seats. There needs to be a host of that network, and that level, perhaps if there are here countries who offer themselves to be to be the directors or to be the secretariat. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wants to come in? Sorry, Martina.
Yeah, it's me again. I remember there was the ICIC in 2017, I think, or somewhere. So I'm working in the field of freedom of information since 2012, and I remember one European conference. And obviously, it's the faith of all those European initiatives to somehow fall asleep. So that would be one thing. But maybe you said, no, we have the ICIC, we don't want to compete. But I think since we have this session here, it's something we should discuss as well. So I don't want to jump in, but it seems like there is some kind of agreement that it makes sense to have those both levels, the working level, and I really like this idea of a strategic level. I think it's very useful. And when I think of the ETSA, the European Data Protection Board, they sometimes address us with freedom of information issues. And we are not a unified voice in freedom of information. They are in data protection, and it's about disclosure. And they ask us, what is your opinion on this? And it would be so helpful if there was a network and we could just send an email and say, hey, how about speaking with one voice and making clear that we are not the ugly little sister that did not take a shower, but that we are people who are standing up for democracy like our colleagues in data protection do.
So we should not minute the description of access to information as the ugly little sister that didn't take a shower. But I mean, that's really helpful. Thank you, everyone. I mean, it sounds like that there is enthusiasm for having a network at the different levels. I think gratitude to Germany for agreeing to host the casework forum in particular. As Darren mentioned, a couple of people from our office went to that and really enjoyed it and thought it was excellent, so thank you very much to do that. I struggle not to jump in and volunteer to come to a meeting in Dubrovnik, I must admit, beautiful as it is. But I mean, it sounds like, Martin, if you're potentially able to offer the secretariat function more widely, that would obviously be great, but we don't want to hold you to it now without having had the discussions. And if you're not able to, if you want to get in touch with me in the first instance, and I'll pick that up and discuss with INI as well about what other options we might have. I also cannot commit at this stage to it because of various pressures on the team that would do that in other spaces. But I could have that discussion if you are unable to. Sorry, yeah.
We could follow the example with the Secretariat of ICIC. It's not grateful for Germany to organize every year such a meetings, but we can form a team of few countries. So maybe not Albania and Germany because we will go there, but I think maybe us and Kosovo could organize, or Greece. They are not present here, but we can ask them, or Bulgaria. They have non-governmental organization, countries that are nearby. We can form secretariat of few neighborly countries, so we can take the obligation to organize such a conference.
Yeah, I mean,
European countries.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a really good idea, and I think whoever does volunteer to do it, I think doing so in the knowledge that actually we would look to rotate it once it was established is
we can rotate,
is the right way of doing it.
I will take I will take the responsibility to ask our neighbors, Serbian, maybe Croatian, Montenegro. They have new team on board, so I can ask them.
Excellent, thank you very much. Well, it sounds like we do have options for how to develop it, depending on how we get on in that first instance. It sounds like definitely as a first step, we would continue with the casework discussion forum at that level anyway. So that sounds like it's established, so thank you very much for that. Is there anything else that anyone wants to raise at this point, or that anyone wants to kind of just discuss in general about pressures or issues that are kind of emerging in their areas that we would like to ask anyone any questions of, or are people wanting to go and get coffees? What would people like to do? People might have had too much coffee by this point of the day. It sounds like we've reached a positive conclusion in the sense that we will have a European network. We have options on the Secretariat function potentially, and we've got agreement that once that is set up, we will rotate it. And I assume at the first meeting of the network, when that is set up, that is something for the agenda to discuss how that could work in practice. We could just model it very much on the ICIC approach potentially in terms of the regularity of rotation and take it from there. Sorry, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I have a very practical question, because as we found out today, unfortunately, we were trying to address all European colleagues, and we were not able to because the data wasn't available. We did not have all the actual email addresses. So right now we are sitting together, but then everybody goes back to his home office, and how do we connect? So how about maybe you offering one central email address where everybody who's interested will mail to, and then we would have a mailing list that we can enlarge step by step, everybody who's interested, and we just spread the news to those who are not around today.
European network will be limited to ICIC members, or any can join, any European country can join?
So I think I'm right in saying that the way that the other networks work is that they have ICIC members as the core membership, but then you can have members who are observers, who aren't necessarily formal members of the ICIC. That would seem to me to be a sensible approach for us to take as well. I'm conscious that the election results announcement are due tomorrow for the executive committee, and I think there's something on the agenda for tomorrow about that approach in general anyway, but that's my understanding of how it works. So I think we could be flexible on it. On the point about how we get things kind of started off on that front, I'm happy to pick up as an action whilst you're kind of having the discussions on your side about the kind of future of a secretariat, to speak to I&I about getting a mailing list at least for all the ICIC members, and we can get something sent out around that to kind of gauge the level of interest, and make sure that then that's shared with the secretariat to expand it to people who aren't ICIC members as needed. I think we could allow it to just grow organically over time as people become aware of it.
Yes.
Because there are very few European
Sorry,
members.
thank you.
Members.
Just on that thought, I think it would be worthwhile reaching out to some of the other information commissioners who we don't see at the ICIC and who have never seen at the ICIC, to make them aware that we're wanting to start having these discussions, just to see what their appetite would be for doing it, and that might then encourage them to join the ICIC, and then we're getting growth in the ICIC with a stronger voice, more opinions from different jurisdictions, which can only be good for all of us as a group. So a little bit of a recruiting ground, as well as hopefully growing our own European resource and learning from each other. Moving on to what you might want at the first meeting, and learning from what we did when we were putting together the charter for the ICIC, it might be worthwhile having, once we've got the lists, thinking of the first meeting being what do we want to do, what do we want our objectives to be, how often do we want to meet, what do we want to get out of it, and how formal do we need it to be, how much work do we actually need it to be, is there a lighter touch way of doing it. I think those are really important discussions to have at the start, and also send our spies out to the other regional networks and ask them, what do you do, what worked for you, what didn't work for you, to see if we can maybe get some ideas. I mean, it's all very vague, sorry for that, just for a starter, those might be some ideas that we could have just to begin the process, and then see whether it does indeed work for Europe as a region.
Those who begin with the responsibility of beginning this network, as far as the European members who are also members of the ICIC, their emails are in the ICIC net page, web page. So all those, we can go to the ICIC web page, and those emails are there.
Yeah, very few.
For instance, here, the Spanish Commission is not here, but the email of the Spanish Commission is in the ICIC web page. Also, for instance, the Catalonian, Spain, but Catalonia, in case Catalonia is the Ombudsman of Catalonia, is also a member of ICIC, but he's not present here. But their address, its address is there. They are European Commissions who are not members of ICIC. In those cases, when you begin this work of putting together this idea, the other members who receive your first address, your first letter, will try with the other members who are not members of ICIC, put them in contact. All of us will have the responsibility of trying to reach other European commissions, besides the commissions who are already members of ICIC, which is, for them it's easier to reach immediately the contact. So.
No, I agree, and also with Darren about the point that there is an opportunity here for a bit of both the recruitment drive and also to explore with some of the colleagues that are members of the ICIC but do not come to the conference, like why that is and how we can kind of encourage them to do so to kind of share their learning as well. Is there anyone else that wants to raise anything? So to summarise, I think was there.
We were just looking at the list of the
Ah,
European
okay.
ICIC members. For
we
me,
can start
very
from
few.
there. We can start from there. From
Yeah.
members of ICIC and go on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Spread the network.
Yeah. No, definitely. So I think I will summarise briefly. So I think we've agreed we will have a European network. It will continue at kind of case level and also develop at the strategic level. Colleagues in Germany are going to explore whether or not they can support it with a secretariat function, and if not, will let us know, and we will kind of pick that up from there. I will look at the kind of logistical arrangements in the first instance with I&I about putting a call out for additional members to do that encouraging, and if everyone can take away an action for kind of counterpart organisations with whom they do have some relationship, just to reach out and encourage them to be part of that first meeting, and also to give them a nudge about, are you a member of the ICIC? If not, why not? And also come to the conference next year. It won't be very far for them to travel, so they can't use that as an excuse next year. And I think that is not a bad list of actions for the first very informal meeting, I guess, of the European network. And in which case, thank you very much, everyone, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agora, a apresentação.
Comparando com este ano, está tudo muito bem organizado.
How many countries?
Recording
are there?
stopped.
13. No?